Hello, everyone. This is Songtradr Happy Hour, where we get to share insights about the music and media industries. And as a bonus, we get to do it with a refreshing beverage. A very warm welcome to our audience on Zoom and on Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Just a few session tips now for our audience. Feel free to interact in the chat windows, both on Zoom and Facebook. I'm sure our panelists would love for you to say hi. We'll start with a 40-minute panel discussion followed by 20 minutes where you get to ask the questions. We will try to get to as many as we can, we promise. Apologies in advance if we don't get to yours. Don't forget to add your questions to the Q&A window on Zoom or in the Facebook chat. Okay, so now that housekeeping is done, let me introduce you to our wonderful panelists. Our first guest followed in his parents' footsteps, becoming a graduate of the University of Florida, and according to his bio, all three bleed orange and blue. I'm going to ask about that a bit later. During his 20s, he toured heavily and has been a music industry participant ever since. In 2007, he became the CEO and co-founder of Rock Salt Music, whose mission is to create and license music for visual and branded content. I'm cherry picking a little bit now, but here goes. Rock Salt has produced music for brands like Vans, Verizon, Samsung, Longines, Citroën, and Kodak. On the film and TV side, most of us would have heard the names Dancing with the Stars, The Walking Dead, Deadliest Catch, and the film our mothers did not want us to watch, 50 Shades Darker. This panelist is also a composer in his own right, based in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. Hopefully that's right. Living in a 28-foot Airstream trailer with his wife and two kids who are both animals. His words, not mine. Please welcome Ashton Allen. Hi, Ashton. So next on our panel, she was born during the peak of permed hair, acid wash denim and shoulder pads. The loss of her musician father at an early age had a huge impact on her decision to become a professional musician. She studied at Berklee College of Music in Boston, after which she moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where she still resides. Described by one publication as too pop for country and too country for pop, she has won 5 independent country music awards. Her song, Jealous of the Angels, written for her late father, reached #1 on the UK Singer-Songwriter charts and has over 3.5 million YouTube views. Whoa. She has been named International Act of the Year, not 1, but 2 years in a row at the British Country Music Awards. We are privileged to have with us today a singer, a songwriter, and a lover of humans. Welcome, Jenn Bostic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And now to lucky number 3. This guy loves building brands. He actually graduated with a degree in business and finance, but nothing sparked his interest until he discovered marketing. And so he went from marketing monster cables to headphones when he helped launch Beats by Dre, and then more headphones when he co-founded Soul Republic. Now, as CMO of Next Music and Sessions, he works to provide tools for artists to build their fan base and earn a sustainable income right from their homes, which is very useful right now. Music to our ears. Hello and welcome, Seth Combs.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are we all doing today? Where are we all calling from?
Nashville.
Nice.
Central Florida. I'm at mom and dad's house.
Oh, nice. And Seth?
I'm up in San Francisco.
Oh, very cool, very cool. And Ashton, am I allowed to just let everyone know that you're not feeling so well today, but you're such a trooper and you've joined us regardless. So thank you.
We'll get through it. We're going to get through it together, right?
Yay. All right, so what are we all here for? We're here to discuss ways that artists can make money with their music. Such a hot topic right now, especially given the absolute upheaval in the live touring scene. So maybe Ashton, I can start with you. as an industry veteran, I'm sure you have endless stories on what's worked and what hasn't. The hasn't usually gives us the most fun stories, but I'm not fussy here. I'll take both sides. What are some standout tips that you've picked up along the way?
Sure. Well, my guess is if you're in this crazy industry, you're in it because you're passionate about it and you're disciplined and you're relentlessly persistent. And my first suggestion would be, from my own experience, is to, if at all possible, partner with someone. Don't go it alone. Join forces with someone or people, or collaborate. With me, my co-founder, I found someone even more driven and more talented and more creative. So, I've been like chasing to keep up with him for 13 years. And so I guess my first tip would be to surround yourself with people you admire and that you respect and that make you want to be better and work harder.
Yeah, I love that. And your co-founder's name, and you actually write a lot of music with him too, is that correct?
Yeah, we started this accidental kids band called Rabbit with an exclamation point through writing music for commercials. And we kind of stumbled into this sound that was really getting a lot of traction. And we ended up having to give it a name at some point. We didn't really have any attachment to it whatsoever, but it's kind of been leading us around on an adventure ever since. So we try to just stay out of its way and see where it's going to lead next. I guess that's another thing just popped into my head is that, I guess it could be considered a tip, is you're in an industry that values creativity. So you can use the creativity that you have as a creator to find ways in, like use it, like there are no rules. So for how you get in touch with someone, for how you open a door, don't go through the front door. It's oversaturated, it's packed. Look for the side door, look for the window, look for, what does that mean? Like, look for different ways to open doors and use your creativity that you have as a writer and implement that in the way you get yourself opportunities. It's a great advantage to have. Not all industries kind of come with that. So I'd say for sure, do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure, Jen, that you would have a lot to say about this too, being a creative, an artist, a singer-songwriter yourself. Before you actually, when you first started, did you have a thought that I need to write specifically in a certain way or create in a certain way, or were you just going by inspiration and instinct?
When I first started viewing things as, this was the trajectory of my life and my career, I very naively started to write songs that I thought the radio was going to want to hear. And they weren't necessarily, pulled from my heart. They were pulled from things I was seeing or things that, I was hearing on the radio that I thought, oh, I could write something similar. And I learned very quickly that authenticity is felt, and if what you're writing and creating is not authentic, people see right through that. And I learned that lesson through my first album, which was a great lesson to learn, and I still grew so much during that time. But it wasn't until my sophomore album that I wrote a song that really just helped me express the loss of my dad. Like you mentioned earlier, it's called Jealous of the Angels, the song, but it helped me to dig deep in a way that I didn't really realize I could do that through music. And I found this beautiful therapy that then started to resonate with people around the world. And it brought me to many other places around the world. And that has just been kind of, once I saw that happen and I saw the beauty and vulnerability and just writing what you know and being as honest as possible, and that's all I wanted to do. And so that's what I've been doing since 5 albums later. And I think it's hard to go through the front door, and it doesn't always, look the way that you think it's going to, but if you've got the heart for it and you're persistent and you want it, I mean, you will find the window, you will find the side door. And when you do, you run through it.
And I've heard this quite a bit from people who have had some sort of success or some attention, some industry attention. Often they will say that it's actually after that they get there and they get the attention. It's kind of harder after that. Like, I know that there's probably a lot of artists out there who are saying that that's absolute rubbish because you know, writing and trying to establish yourself as an artist is tough, and we know that. But when you actually get to that point, it's like a tipping point. How do you actually stay there and then continue to create the traction? Because sometimes what happens too is you get the pressure of delivering again and again and again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is, I really struggled with that. That's what happened for me when I wrote that song that had some success. It was tough because it took me, you know, however many years to express what I had gone through and finally put into a song. And then it's like, oh, okay, next album, like 1 year later, then write, you know, a hit that's better than that. And so there's that pressure that you put on yourself that you feel, you know, might be coming from whatever management or publishing to just do, you know, this next amazing thing. And I think it can get in the way when you're trying to just be creative and be honest and be real. And you've got this little voice inside saying, well, it has to be better than the last thing. And I think that I grew so much when I was able to silence that voice. And don't get me wrong, it still creeps in every once in a while, but there's so much power in silencing it and saying, you know what, that was a moment in time. That was a beautiful part of my story. And now I've lived some life from that, and I'm just going to share what I know. And hopefully someone will connect with that. But in the process, I get to, you know, get that story out of me and leave it behind. And you have to see it as a beautiful process and a, you know, a life and a journey that you take with you.
Very nice. Ashton, how about you? Do you have a little voice and then you just go away? You know, what format does that take for you? Because you
yeah, I mean, I think I have an instinct. My biggest gift, I think, and you know, I'm sort of a 7 of all trades in music. I grew up playing piano at 4 and played guitar and bass in a bunch of college bands and things like that. But I never felt like I was like dominant at any one instrument. But I think if I did have something that I felt like was my best foot forward, it's my ears. So, you know, like what Jenn was talking about with authenticity, I mean, you can smell Inauthentic from a mile away. And in this day and age where licensing and sync is one of the few ways to make a decent living or some decent income in music, you have to be really careful because the tendency is to want to just telegraph, you know, well, I'm just going to write songs about brand new days and I'm going to write songs about, you know, togetherness. I mean, a perfect example is like right now, like, you know, in this time, I don't know if you saw that YouTube video. There was a YouTube video recently about, they took all the brands and all these commercials that have said, we're all in this together. And they kind of made this mashup of them all saying the same thing. And it just made it seem like it was all inauthentic. And I know it's not, but I think there's something to what Jenn's saying about, you know, you're way better off sharing your story because you are your story and your story is real. So start there. You know, if you can stumble into a niche that also, or a style that people value, then that's a bonus. But I think it's nice to be able to do what you love first and foremost. You know, the music industry's, it's like, have you guys seen Miss Maisel? Have you guys seen Miss Maisel, the show? You know, when she goes in one of the first episodes, she like gets bailed out of jail by Lenny Bruce, and she says to him, she's like, Lenny, do you love it? And he's like, if I could do anything else in the world, I would. And then she's like, but do you love it? And he's like, and he walks off, and it's like, yeah, it really stuck with me. And she looks at the camera, and she's like, he loves it. You know, and it's like, you have to love it because it's not a fun industry. It's not an easy industry. Can be thankless, and the good news is though, you can leverage it because there are really no rules. We're in the Wild West still. You can carve your own path and use that to your advantage. So, I mean, yeah. So anyway, getting back to what you mentioned, the thing I bring to the table are my ears. My partner trusts my ears. You know, if I'm saying, hey, you know, let's pull the piano back on this a little bit, or let's cut that bridge, or let's blah, blah, blah. He's just like, yep. You know, and it's like, that's the thing I lead with. And his are his lyrics, thankfully, because it's not my strength. So.
Well, it's good to know, though. So you surround yourself with people who can complement what you do, not try to actually be amazing at everything. And if we reference Mrs. Maisel, you also have to know how to cook a good brisket, don't you?
Brisket's coming in.
Yeah. So you just, I'm getting to you in a moment, Seth. He's very patient there, waiting. But Rock Salt Music just got a Netflix placement, didn't you, for a trailer through.
We did, yeah. They just sent us
on that.
a couple of days ago. It was really cool. I didn't actually know it was the trailer. It's always kind of like Christmas morning with you guys, where I'm like, oh, cool. There's a thing that you're interested in. And then I learned after like year 2 or 3, because anytime you have any opportunity when you're getting this kind of business going, you're like, you know, you just want to call the person every day, like, did we get it? Did we get it? Did we get it? And you learn really quick that those people don't want you to do that. So if you can just like, great, it's an opportunity, send them the stems, cool. Next thing, forget it, move on to whatever's next. And then when it like surprises you and comes back and they're like, oh, by the way, here's the link to the thing, and it actually happened, you're like, oh, so cool. So yeah.
No, it's true. I think that's a great tip, actually, for a lot of artists out there, is there is that urge to want to follow up all the time. And yet I think something to really keep in mind is that you're building a relationship with everyone in the industry that you touch. And so see it as a long-term relationship, and don't see it as personal. If your song doesn't get chosen for something, it's not personal. It is all about the right song with the right fit for whatever they're looking for. So that's something that we try to say a lot all the time to our artists, because it is very personal, their art. But one other thing that I wanted to just ask you, Ashton, before we move on, is what was that first placement, that first major placement that you got, and what were the kind of moments or the steps leading up to that? Were you working towards something deliberately, or did it just happen?
Well, I could tell you a few different ones, but I'll try to just pick one that sticks out, because there were a few really weird ones. But I guess the very first placement that Rabbit ever got, Rabbit wasn't a band. You know, like I said, we had written this song. Devin had written this song called "Color Your World," I think, and we'd pitched it in the hat, you know, and then we like forgot about it and went on to the next thing. And we got a call back from the agent rep, and she's like, hey, Frito-Lay really loves this song. They want to know who the band is. And we're like, it's not a band. Like, it's Rock Salt. We just wrote it today. Like, we just sit around, and when the bat phone rings, we just create. You know, we're like, we're going to do anything you want anytime. That was kind of, we were full of piss and vinegar when we started. We can do everything, you know. And we learned really quickly that's not the case. But and so I was like, Michelle, it's Rock Salt. It's not a band. She's like, no, they want it to be a band. There's like this bands and brands thing. I don't know. This was back in 2010. But so I was like, okay, I'll call you back in an hour. And so I sat Devin down. I'm like, I need some band names. And he's like, starts throwing things down. And he's finally like, what about Rabbit? And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, let's put an exclamation point on it just to be weird. Okay. And so we called her back, and I was like, okay, Michelle, tell Frito-Lay it's Rabbit with an exclamation point. And she died laughing on the phone. And she was like, what? And so, you know, and then again, we were just like, no attachment to the band whatsoever. And then that led to a placement with Honda when they rolled out what was it? The competitor to the Prius, the Insight. And we were one of like 15 tracks up for the spot. And then it was one of 8, and then it was one of 4, and then it was one of 2. And it was a big seeing feed. And when we got it, Honda was like, we're going to connect to your iTunes to help push the single. And we're like, we don't have anything on iTunes. Like, we're not a bit, okay, well, I guess it's Rabbit. And then like, a single, we'll just take a bunch of these songs that we've had fun writing with literally no motive. We've been creating music for the fun of it again. When we both had come from bands that were like on labels, and like Jenn was talking about, like, you know, you have to really wrestle with your authenticity and wrestle with like, they want me to do this, and what should I do, and da-da-da. And here was this thing that was like, turned out to be some kids singing to your hairbrush happy music that neither of us wanted to claim, and that ultimately won its way into our hearts. And then, you know, we ended up touring, and we ended up having adventures on the West Coast, and, you know, and things like that. And you say like, well, it's not a real band. And you're like, well, what's a real band? Like, I mean, especially now, like what means, you know, we became a real band by trying to not be a band. And I was in a band for 15 years that would have, you know, we changed our outfits and our style of music just to like get Steve Robertson to come to the show from Atlantic, you know, what does he want us to look like tonight? So you tell me, it's like, you know, there was no, so it was refreshing and all to know that it was like, finally we were doing something that was like getting a lot of attention. And actually there was no, we want to be on MTV. We want a record deal. We want to da-da-da. We were just enjoying making music. We were like, we had a blast doing it. And it just, eventually we just started staying out of its way.
And that's the key, isn't it? If you're having fun, then there's got to be something great in that. And then you bring in your experience and all the business side as well, but don't lose the fun, I guess, is something really good in there. Singing into your hairbrush is a good way. Is that what you do, Seth, every morning?
Good segue. Sorry,
Oh, yeah, that was a great segue. Yes.
I don't know. I'm working it.
No, you're doing great. Get the Aperol spritz out. We're all good.
Oh, well, here it is. Yeah. So, Seth, I really want to talk to you about the work that you're doing now. I get the feeling that you're doing lots of things all the time, but currently your work is very much about enabling artists to earn through live stream performance. Hopefully I got that right. Are there some key elements that artists could keep in mind when they're preparing for a live stream performance with revenue capabilities?
That's a great question. I mean, we want two things to happen. One is we want artists to own their fan base, truly own their fan base. You look at Facebook, you look at Instagram right now, and a lot of people you fall in love with it and you think, oh, wow, I have 100,000 fans, but you don't realize that 95,000 plus of those fans will never see a post of yours unless you pay to boost it. I mean, they completely block you from 95% of your fan base. So you actually can't get that artist-fan connection. And then from a monetization perspective, we've built multiple apps. After I left the headphone business, I went directly into software. And the idea was, can we connect artists and music fans like never before? And when live streaming, from our perspective, we started working on live streaming in January 2019. And the goal there was, you have a guy like PewDiePie on YouTube. Yeah. He has 104 million subscribers. That is bigger than the country of Australia. Think about that. That is a huge population.
Oh, that means something to me, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
Funny that.
And he makes tens of millions of dollars per year. But name one musician, one artist who's actually expressing the human emotion authentically that's made over $100,000 on live streaming. You'll be hard pressed to find it. Name one that's made over $1 million. You won't find it. And so from our perspective, we realized that music and live streaming, it just wasn't presented properly. A lot of what happened was the history of live streaming was a lot of put a camera in the corner, and then it's like you're at a concert. And then the artist never talks to you. They're performing to the audience, and then you get to see it from home and you're just watching them from the side. And what we did is we spent a lot of time, we hired a research team, we hired a team to really study the top live streamers, and we found that being good, having the talent to perform, having an incredible voice, having an incredible song, that only gets you in the front door of live streaming. It's your ability between songs to connect, to interact with fans that will truly transform your career. There's one artist, she lives in a small town outside of Bucharest, Romania. She's had a vocal coach for over 15 years. When she came on our platform, because we were recruiting people last year as beta testers, when she came on our platform, she couldn't get 1,000 views on YouTube anywhere. She couldn't get even several hundred. If you talk to her, she will say YouTube hates her. The algorithm hates her.
Oh.
And she came on our platform and she was performing from home. And within a couple months, when we added monetization and we started coaching her, all of a sudden she's calling me up going, Seth, I made $500 this week. Seth, I made $1,000 this week. Now she's consistently working 3 hours per week, making over $2,000 per week. And she's hired 3 of her friends. And this is a person because what she did though, is she understood that music is one part. The interaction, that connection is the key part. Fans want to support artists. Fans want to fall in love with artists. Artists are expressing the emotion of all these fans. I can play a song for you right now that'll make you cry, that'll make you laugh, that'll make you want to go kiss someone. It's that powerful because music is the first language. It's a universal language. And what we're trying to do is just go, here's the platform. We're going to coach you as best we can, and we hope you do it right. And we're going to tell you, stop playing so much. Take the time. If you're going to do a cover song, tell us why. Was that a song your mom used to hum as a child? Was that a song your dad used to play on when he'd drive you to school? Whatever it is, let the fan fall in love with you because that's where the true connection happens. And that's where that true interaction happens.
Wow, that's a great answer. And, to any of you, what are some of the things that you think that artists do that potentially get in the way of them moving forward in their careers? Perhaps it could be your own experience, if you want to confess something, or it could be something that you've seen.
That's a tough one, but I think trying to be, and we already covered this to a lot of degree, but I feel like trying to be something that I'm not is never going to help me. It's never like I can experiment and have fun and create, but I need to know what I do and what I do well and to do that thing. And yes, add things and collaborate, do really great things. But if something's working, like I'm not going to go write your next best rap song and I'm not even going to try, that's just not something I should do. And I feel like when sometimes we see like, oh, there's so many opportunities and you try to spread yourself so wide that there's just nothing can find a home, and if you can kind of focus your energy on, this is what I do well, I'm going to find an outlet for this. And for me, that's touring live, like I know that if I go and I perform live for an audience and I can connect with that audience, that we've created this thing that is then going to carry to the next time I come back. And for me, like that's something that works really well. I, haven't figured out other avenues as well. And that's okay. That's what works for me. And I think trying to do everything at once can be overwhelming as well.
Sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, I find truly that like a lot of artists, we deal with artists all day, and it's really getting overwhelmed with what to do, to Jenn's point, and where to start. And a lot of them will be like, well, I don't know what to do on Instagram. I don't know what to do on Facebook. I mean, should I get into TikTok now? I'm like, those are media platforms. Those are ways to talk to your audience. That's not a marketing strategy. Make sure you feel like your music's good. And then stick with your music and then understand, how do I get it out on the channels I want to get it out? Who's my true fan or who's my true audience that I believe would resonate well with this too? When you look at artists like Lizzo, her song had come out 2 years before. She had to buy back the rights. When you look like Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist, he sold one book, The Alchemist, the first year. Then he sold the second book to the same guy several years later. Then he finally bought the rights back. Then he goes, I believe in this book. I'm going to market it myself. And you have to realize that every one of you, you're an artist. And it's understanding what these other platforms are really meant for. TikTok is not your answer to becoming a star. It's a medium to connect with fans. And you should look at it that way and try to make sure you just find your core and go, how do I want to go out from here?
So just on fans, what are some really good ways to identify the people that will connect with your music? What do we think? Because it's one thing, to write your songs and write from the heart and think that you're on the right track. And then what you can do is, I guess you can put your song out there on your social media channels, get it up on Spotify. But to really pinpoint and refine, is it just doing it month after month and a steady, slow progress? Or do we have some secrets that we can share with our community?
I'll chime in, and it has a lot to do with what Seth and Jenn both said. But the truth of the matter is, if people don't know what it is you do, and they can share it with someone else in 5 seconds, oh yeah, this guy has a real funky thing, it's kind of like this Alan Stone, like they need to be able to categorize you. They need to be able to say, this is the niche, this is the type of music that they do. I'm not saying your music isn't your own, because it is, but if you're sending music to creative directors or to me or to other music reps or music supervisors, if you're trying to do a catch-all thing where it's just going to water down your chances of hearing back or the person you're sending to knowing at all. And the thing you do best is going to get lost in that. And so I think knowing what that is and involve the people that sometimes, when I was trying to learn how to songwrite and, as a solo artist, I didn't know what my sound was. I didn't. And I took sharing a bunch of different demos with people I trusted and friends and family and saying like, hey, look at all this. Like, what resonates with you? And they say, oh, like these 3 songs they really remind me of you, and blah, blah, blah. And I like this for this reason and not so much these for that reason. And then, take it with a grain of salt, but do the work you need to do to decide on who you are as an artist, so that when you share who you are, the person you're sharing with knows.
Yeah. Jenn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, as an artist, as I create and I share the why of, why did I write this song? Or, why am I sharing the things that I'm sharing? I feel like naturally you're going to connect as an artist. If you're being vulnerable, you're going to connect with people that, have similar beliefs and thoughts and, feelings about the world as you do. And that's, if you're writing from your heart, that's naturally just they're going to like your music because they like a lot of the same things you do. And I feel like the more I share and the more open I am, and open with just, whatever opportunities come my way and seem like a good fit, I feel like the more I can identify and say, oh, okay, this is, people that like to listen to my music kind of fall into this group category, whatever that might be. And that's ever changing, as I create a new album, or that might shift a little bit. But the bulk of the people who, started listening to my music back from my first album, like there's a lot of them that are still with me. And, I'm so grateful for that. And I feel like I feel it's such a deep connection with those people. I feel like we've lived life together, and so I feel like it's so important, every single person that resonates with your song. If you're at a level, which I am, like I'm at a level where I can respond to everybody on social platforms. And to your point, Seth, social platforms are an amazing tool to allow you to connect with your audience. They're not a marketing plan, but they're just such a great way to say like, wow, if somebody resonates with your song on a deep enough level where they take the time to reach out to you and write you a message, and you aren't at a level where you've got millions of followers and just physically can't, like they deserve a message back. And like that connection can build this relationship that's so much bigger than, that you ever even realized could happen when you started writing that song in your bedroom,
Yeah. Everyone out there, did you hear that? Start messaging Jenn and she's going to get back to every single one of you. So it's like a partnership though, isn't it? You and, everyone on the other side of the song. It's really beautiful. So I think that we have just a few more minutes before we get to our Q&A section. God, that went fast, didn't it? Man, we must have been having fun. I wanted to ask, what is a tip that you wished someone had shared with you early on in your career? Oh gosh, what have I done?
For me, go ahead, Ashton. Were you ready?
Well, for me, it's I don't know if it's a tip or not. I mean, for me, it's more like it has more to do with time and how you use it, and just, the band I played in back in the 90s and 2000s, we toured our faces off for 11 years, and we were independent the whole time, and we played with every band that you would have known or heard of back then, if you're old enough to have known or heard of them. But this was pre-social media, and this was pre all that stuff, and we drove hundreds of miles every day, and we pulled up and did sound check at 6, and we went on at midnight or 1 in the morning. And I mean, we were playing Game Boys and going to the movies most of the time. And it's like, I was in a 7-piece band. And I think back and I'm like, man, we had some really cool shows, and we did a lot of things that some bands on labels didn't even get to do. But I always think back and I'm like, first of all, I wish we had social media. But secondly, what could we have done if the 7 of us had treated ourselves a little more like a startup and a little bit less like a band that's like, well, I hope more people are here tonight than last time. How much more time till we, there's a lot of waiting. And I guess, maybe I think about it, I'm like, wow, we could have been like a little more of a small business, and everyone could have learned, I could have been in charge of learning about art publishing and registering our songs and handling all that, and PROs, and someone else could have learned about, marketing, and we could have each had specialties and then focused on those and been accountable for them. And what could we have done if we used the time we had? And I think that that's something I learned from my partner, Devin, as well. It's like, he's up at 3:30, he's writing music till 8 every day. And he has the silence of the world that he wants to create. And, and then the day gets started. But he's already, he just sent me an email yesterday of a new project that he's like, every 8 years or so, I like to do a new project and blah, blah, blah. It's like, so here's a something, check it out, no rush. It's like, it's 23 tracks, it's 2 albums. They're completely done. I knew nothing about them. And I'm just like, I guess that's my thing. The tip I would say is like, you have no idea. Like, a day goes by fast. You can't get as much done in a day as you think, but you can get way more done in a year than you think. And the time you have, like, if you have it, use it. Hone your craft. Write, learn, read. Like, I wish I would have done that for those 10 or 11 years. I mean, it wouldn't be like, I would have been hustling like I was to get things going and started. So I think that's one of the things I learned the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I wish someone in my career had said, will you just settle the F down? Really, relax. Stop being a control freak. Jenn or Seth?
Yeah, I feel that statement. I am a type A control freak and self-proclaimed. And I feel like one thing that I'm trying to continue to learn is that I just get so laser beam focused on, this is the goal, and this has to be the goal, and it has to look exactly like this. And if it doesn't, then it's not a success. And that is just not true. And I feel like we can set these, I'm a big goal setter, like write them down every year, and I feel like they can look however they're going to look. And if you end up, starting to focus on this one thing and it veers a little bit, but it's still beautiful, great. Be open-hearted, walk where the opportunities are, go where you're appreciated, do those, just because little by little, all of those steps lead you to where, you're meant to be. And I feel like I constantly learn that over and over again every year. And the second I start to feel frustrated or anxious about, why isn't this happening as fast as I want it to, or why doesn't it look the way that in my head it was supposed to go, and we can all feel that right now. But I feel like it's just so important to just chill out and look around and see the beauty that is happening and the opportunities that are at your fingertips, and grab hold of them,
Yeah, Very true. We don't always know the form that our success will take, and success really comes in lots of different ways, right? So, Seth, I know you've got a pearl in there for me.
No, but I think, I mean, Ashton really touched on a lot of key points that I love. There's an incredible book called Essentialism that we gave to everyone on the team 2 years ago, and it's really being comfortable with saying no, because when you say yes, you're giving up time, you're giving up a lot of your thought space of what you can actually get done that day to do something you've said yes to. And you really need to think through those decisions, because as an artist as well, you have to understand yourself. You might say, it's like Ashton pointed out with his partner, you might go, hey, my morning time is my creative time. I need 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. No one's talking to me. No one's around me. I'm going to create. And that may be your creative time. And then after that, you can really get into your day and do those other things. But making time for yourself, being able to say yes to yourself and no to those other things is going to be so important as you progress on your career, because it matters so much. It's only making a few more right decisions and making a few more right decisions for yourself that are going to make that difference.
Yeah, I love it. Stay true to yourself, right? Great. Well, I think it's time to put all of you in the hot seat, because it's Q&A time. Dun, dun, dun. Brandon is going to jump on. He's our producer for today, and he's going to be
Hi, guys.
questions.
Hello.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi.
Yeah.
So let's pick a question here. How do I find this is from Brendan Elder. How do I find baby boomers to market my indie classical / jazz music to, for instance?
Does someone want to take that? How do I find, do you want to say that one more time?
How do I find baby boomers to market my indie classical / jazz music to? So I guess the question is about certain niche markets and locating the best avenues.
Yeah, what I would do, what I do is, that's a great marketing research tool, which is you're looking for an audience and you're trying to find out where your audience is. So I would type in some of the sites where you think they are. I would type them into, and if you type in a site like maybe it's jazz.com, you type in related:jazz.com, it'll pull up every other site that's even closely related to jazz.com. If you're going on if you're going on Facebook and you find a jazz community, it'll pull up all the related jazz communities. And that's exactly where you want to go. You want to consistently go there, because every platform, every form of medium has that type of directory and that type of search functionality. Little Nas X, he spent years honing marketing on Twitter as a Twitter troll beforehand. And when he came out with Old Town Road, he was putting up memes everywhere. And finally a meme took off on Reddit and Twitter, but it was months of promoting. And from a perspective of an artist going, where do I find these? There's a number of ways of search directories to do that.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think Brandon, next one, or did anyone
another question?
Anyone else want to jump in, or should we move to the next question? No, I think that was well answered. Thank you, Seth.
So Patrick Stallone asks,
Great.
okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
What's the biggest mistake any of the panelists have made in their career, and could they elaborate on their experience?
This is the confession time that I was hoping for. Who's going to go first?
I put Diesel in the RV on our way to a gig with Casey and the Sunshine Band. And I was driving, so if you're the one driving, this is back when we had this we bought this thing brand new, man. We beat it to shit. And we stopped to get gas on the way there, and the problem is that our gas tank, like, literally had the thing was busted through, so like the diesel would just fit in, like it's like it's supposed to keep you from doing things like that, but it was broken. And I know this is not the mistakes you're asking about. I'm just going to let someone else share something much more. But anyway, you know, full tank. And then I'm like, no, this isn't, I don't think this is good. I don't think this is good.
Yeah,
And so I told him, I'm like, hey, is it bad? Is it bad if you put diesel in the RV? He's like, oh my God. And
yeah.
we ended up like undoing something from the bottom of the RV, and it like spilled all over our singer's face, and like, and then we had to go buy kitty litter because it was running down the street, and hazmat showed up. It was literally insane. I have 15 stories of dumb mistakes that we did in the band. I could tell you all day, but we don't have that kind of time. So someone else share something that might be a little more relevant.
Oh, we could
Did I
create
mention I'm on antibiotics right now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They're kicking in. Go for it, Jen.
I have a silly one like that too, but it does have kind of a lesson on the end of it that I've carried through with me. First time I ever went on tour in the United Kingdom, I had a 61 Nord Electro that I was carrying around, and it fits right in the overhead. I was ready. I had all my things ready. I'm so naive. I had found my Airbnb, and I'm so inspired from walking around London all day long. And I get back to my Airbnb room, and I plug my keyboard into the wall socket, and it just like, all the lights light up. It starts smoking because I thought that an adapter was the same thing as a converter in my young, innocent, not knowing what I was doing phase. And so I had a show the following night, my very first show in another country, you know. And so I had to figure out where I could get this thing fixed. And thankfully, Nord has like a tiny fuse. It's very easy to fix. I now know how to switch, you know, from US power to UK power. But it was one of those moments where I was just kind of like lost in this, you know, new city, thousands of miles from home. I have a keyboard that doesn't work, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, how do you fix it? But it was such a good lesson to me that when I tour a lot as a solo artist, just me. And so you do have to just figure it out wherever you are. You don't have somebody like there to help out. What are you going to do next? You know, I'm an indie artist. So it's all right. Figure this out. Then you can figure it out. You just have to like stop stressing out, stop panicking, and just, you know, use the internet, the amazing tools at your fingertips, and work through it.
And so now you have a bat belt, right, with every single adapter and converter under the sun.
Right. Right.
Yeah, ta-da. How about you, Seth? What do you think?
I think mine has always been, and I made this mistake a few times too, as new technologies come out, I kind of rely on other people to do it as opposed to learning them first. And I've learned now over the last couple of years to really get in, to understand it, and then hand it off. I think that will relate to artists and just the ability for artists to understand, especially as they build their marketing, to understand that you're going to make a ton of mistakes on a lot of these platforms, and you're going to make a lot of bad decisions. And you should embrace those mistakes. The more you embrace the mistakes and the more you embrace it, the more you embrace that, the better. It truly becomes quality over quantity at a point in time. Now, if you guys have ever read The War of Art, but they talk about a Rhode Island class, and he goes, this half of the class, you get an A for the more pieces you produce. This half of the class, the best piece you produce. And the class that had to produce less and just a better piece was nothing compared to the class that compared the quantity. And, you know, they had over 80 vases versus 2 vases, which they thought were great. But you can get to creativity by continually polishing that stone, by polishing your song, by going back over it. I don't know if you, like yesterday by Paul McCartney, he had noodled over that for over a year and a half. The title was Scrambled Eggs in his head. But it was more about just noodling on it and understanding that a song doesn't necessarily have to come out perfect the first time. In fact, most of the times it won't. And it's your ability to be okay with that and noodle on it to play from there.
Very cool. Yeah. So the lesson is just keep writing, keep refining. Great. Brandon?
Yeah. Our very own Dave Curtin, Director of Sales, asks, how are artists currently generating revenue during the pandemic?
I've been doing online shows and I've tried to be creative and consistent in my content. So I have been doing like a weekly producer chat on one platform with talking about behind the music. I went back to my very first record, and every Sunday I've been playing the full record down, and then I'll have like a producer chat during the week, and then that Sunday I'll play that record top to bottom. And I've been trying to stick to the same platform just for this month and keep that consistent, and it's kind of built up a nice little crew of listeners who keep coming back, and they know it's going to be happening every Sunday, and they've got their time marked. And between that and demos and, you know, whatever else I can find at this point, I'm just trying to connect with people and continue to share. I feel like one amazing thing that I've learned, I guess, through having to perform online concerts is it's so easy to kind of draw from the energy of an audience when you're live and in the room with them. And there's something amazing that's happening, I feel like, and I've seen it in other artists as well. When you sit in front of a laptop and you're performing, it's a different experience, and because you don't have that energy, you're almost drawing from a deeper place. You're having to do these things that are kind of uncomfortable, you know, and it's pulling out some beautiful qualities in people and helping them become, you know, even more open than maybe they were before. I'm just noticing it in myself, and I'm, you know, I can't wait to go out and perform again. I know that's coming in Nashville. We're starting to do that already, so I'm grateful for that day to come. But, you know, just trying to use the tools at my fingertips and do the best I can.
Yeah, we're all going to emerge, blinking in the sunlight, all changed. Ashton, what about you? Because you're just powering ahead, right?
Sorry, I was answering Frank's question.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great.
I wasn't listening actively. Am I just powering ahead?
Yeah, powering ahead and working. I mean, most of your work is online when it comes to the licensing world, right? So,
right. Has
much changed for you here?
Oh, for the pandemic. So for us, I've seen it as an opportunity for us to generate content. We're looking at like creating and owning and controlling that content, and then we'll take the risk ourselves on finding homes for that in the future. But I think because we've gotten pretty good at it over the years, it's something I trust that we do pretty well. So in that sense, it's kind of like, you know, we have a few things that still come in here and there, because we have some good relationships and things that were pending that then confirm, but a lot of the stuff has slowed down with production. But then another thing that, you know, like just today, like we got a renewal. Renewals are great in the ad world because you can limit your usages. Whenever you can limit your usages to 1 year, then that's always a nice surprise when the client comes back and they want to renew. So then you get a call like you did today where it's like, hey, so-and-so wants to renew this song for another year. Is the same price okay? Sure. You know, and so that renewals have been good to us during this time. You know, I don't know. I see it also as a time to re-strategize, refine, rethink, pivot. I mean, you know, we're in this industry where literally our job is to convince people that music is a commodity still worth paying for. And I think it's one of the bigger challenges there is. So if you've got some downtime, you know, look at it a different way, approach it a different way, whether it's how you send out your reel, like I was just saying to Frank here, like if he's got a high quality catalog, you know, if he's not able to perform live, but he's got a high quality catalog that he likes, and if it's good and other people like it too, well, then it's just a matter of getting it into other people's hands. Okay, well, if you're stuck at home, you know, again, use your creativity as an artist and as a writer to start thinking about, well, what might be a way that I would want to receive something and be more likely to open it or listen to it. You know, if I'm a music rep, how am I most likely receiving emails? They probably say things like, hey, I'm so-and-so. I have this, I want you to check it out. I want to get more licensing and sync, And what you might want to do is send something to someone, and this is just as an idea off the top of my head, you might want to say, hey, I've attached a link to my catalog. As someone who's been in the industry, I'd love to get the thoughts of what you think of this particular track, or you know, do you think there are enough songs in my catalog, or like make that person the hero. We all are the hero of our own story. So if you're going to talk to someone new, don't tell them about how you want to be the hero. Tell them about how they're the hero. So think about different ways you can reach out to people. I think and we still do it. We still do the same thing. We're thinking of like, well, what are different ways we can open doors at a time like this? Or what ways might we want to pivot to stay relevant in an ever-changing industry that just, continues to change faster and faster and become more and more challenging and oversaturated at the same time. It's but the cream will always rise to the top. It takes a little more persistence, a little more patience.
Yeah, give us that cream. Yeah, so they're great tips in there actually, and something else that we always like to impress upon artists is that study who you're pitching to, study what they're working on. And so then if you're pitching to them, you can send them something that you believe will fit the brief. It's not just a spray and then hopefully something sticks, right? And the more that you can be very refined and strategic about what you pitch, the more that you build that relationship where people take notice of what you're pitching because it's very close to what they want and it's very relevant. So that's just my 2 cents there. Seth, did you have anything to add there, or should we move to another question?
Well, this is like to Jenn's point. To me, this is probably one of the best times for artists at home and for artists that are just coming up to really optimize their time, to be utilizing every platform to understand how to connect with their fans and to be live streaming. You could be making money from live streaming. That's what we do all day, and we're helping artists make money every day. But like Jenn's point is, she's live streaming every week. She's able to connect with those fans, make sure that she's gaining not only her current fans and engage with them, but bringing in new fans. We're all in the same boat globally, which is, no new content's being produced on a major scale from there's only so much Netflix you can watch before you've gone through it all, or whatever it might be. And so people want that live experience. People want music. People want live experiences. And they've never had that opportunity. Those people that have seen Jenn perform before around the world, like in London, the ability now to watch her from maybe her living room performing one-on-one, that's such a much more intimate experience. And they're able to connect with her in a different way. And like she's mentioning, which is she's getting energy from the artist. And I think now more than ever, especially with up-and-coming songwriters, people who are like, I could never find my way in social media before. I could never make it before, like Bentley had mentioned too, is, how do you break through? And it's break through live, break through in other channels. There are still over 40,000 new tracks added per day to Spotify. If you're going to try to just go on a streaming service like that and go, let's get my song up, you're not going to get the same type of impact that you would if you go, I want to really focus on how I'm going to market this song, how I'm going to push this out, where can I take this song, where there are less people, there are less competitors, if you will. There are less artists competing with me.
Yeah, great. Brandon, what do you think? Another one?
Oliver Gardner asks, how can you structure the music you are writing to ensure that it's licensable?
Good question. Right. Who wants to take this one? It's an interesting question.
Not me.
Yeah. You could probably give it a shot, right? So it is an interesting question because there's that point of how much do I write for a specific purpose and write to brief, which a lot of composers and artists do, and how much do I do it for more the inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps I can fold this in with the next question, actually, because they're very similar. Jimmy Soundfine says, I write songs of different genres which just tell stories, not necessarily my own, and I hire singers to sing my songs since I can't sing. With everyone saying authenticity is so important, does that mean my songs will not be perceived as authentic?
Not necessarily. No.
Is the question because he's not singing, or they're not singing them?
Yeah, because he doesn't sing his own songs. Will his music be perceived as inauthentic?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that as a vocalist, if you're going to hire somebody, and I mean, anytime I'm going to hire another vocalist to do something of mine, I want it to be emotional. I want to feel that attachment with it. It's who you're finding. You know, if you find somebody that connects with the song, can connect with the lyric, even if they're acting, you know, like if they're doing their job, you know, and your song is compelling, it's going to come through, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of trying out different vocalists too and seeing which ones resonate the most with you and feel the most authentic, right? And use your judgment. You're the one that wants to communicate things a certain way, and then maybe the first singer you bring in is not the right one to do that, or maybe they are. But when it comes to the structuring question, I think you could take that a number of ways, but I'll just say this. I think writing to brief is a lot like speaking a fluent language. And if you're not fluent in that language of writing to brief, then structuring the songs in a way so that they ensure licensability won't work. I won't say it will never work, but most likely it won't work, because the people that are doing it that have been doing it for years and years and years, they've kind of honed that ability to be able to give the post-production teams and the creative teams what they need and the spaces they need and the edit cuts they need in a way that the common listener's not even going to pick up on or notice or feel like the song, you know, threw them off or anything. So, but that is a lot of years. It's a lot of years of writing and work to do that. I would say, you know, I mean, yeah, there are things you could probably do structurally, make sure that don't overcrowd things. Maybe for one, if there's too many lyrics and vocals and too much production and too much bells and whistles, you know, then you're not leaving much room for VO, you know, you're not like things like that to consider. But I don't know. It's such a dicey conversation to get into about creating music for licensing like that. So I'd say you're better off, you know, building best in creating songs and doing 5 or 10 of them and seeing if anyone else cares. And if they do, see if more people than that care. And if they do, then maybe start getting them in the hands of people that do sync and licensing reps, and people like me would be happy to listen to them and say, hey, like, I'll tell you what I think could use work or is great, you know, take it or leave it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, great advice, I think. Brandon, do we have another question floating out there?
Yes, Anne House wrote, like Ashton mentioned, music supervisors or producers seem to want to use songs by bands rather than songwriters. Do the three of you recommend we brand ourselves as a band, even if we are songwriters focusing on sync?
Wow. We touched on this before with Ashton, your band, right?
Yeah, I felt like when it happened, that was such a happy accident because we didn't mean for it. We didn't mean to be a band in the first place. We kind of ended up doing it. But these days, you know, sync bands, and I get briefs all the time. They're like, here's the brief, here's the money, here's the blah, blah, blah. Don't send me sync bands. They don't want them, you know? But again, what's a band? What's not a band? Who's to say? I mean, if you're with a few of your buddies and you guys want to write for sync, an advantage, I'm not going to tell you that it's not an advantage to have a name or a style or a branding that goes with that, because it's only going to make it more recognizable and more representative of the style of music that you write. And that's not a bad thing, but don't telegraph it.
Yeah.
Jen, I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I feel like that's a great answer. Yeah.
great insights. Yeah. Jen, did you want to add anything there as an artist who writes? Do you ever write for brief?
So not a whole lot. I have done some. I think that the most success I've had as far as sync stuff goes has been, I ended up writing with an artist they released the song, it was, you know, a song that we just loved. And to me, I feel like, I know there's a lot of questions going on in the chat about like what's authentic and what's not and all of that. I think if it inspires you and you love it and you love what you're creating, like, you know, whatever that means, I feel like that's a big part of being authentic, if it's true to you. And to me, any of the songs that have gotten the biggest syncs have been songs that we did that with, me or the artist put it out in the world and somebody found it and used it for something. I haven't, you know, written a brief enough to even speak to it, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for us to impress upon everyone here that it's an individual choice. There are no hard and fast rules. I think, as Ashton was saying before, there are guidelines, obviously, and things that work for the industry, but you have to find what works for you, actually, and go on that journey. Open the doors, knock on the doors, whatever you need to do. And you know, there's an audience out there for just about everything, I think. What do you think, Seth, as a marketer?
Oh, 100,000%. I mean, there's an audience for everything. I can't stress that enough. There's one of my favorite books is a book that's out of print. It's called How I Made My First 100 Million. It's a guy who used to sell 5-cent books between 1900 and 1910. All he would do is change the title. That's all he would do. And he goes, it didn't work. Okay, just change the title. And it's about really understanding that, you know, you might just not have packaged it up properly. Like we talked about The Alchemist earlier. It took him 9 years to buy the rights back. It took him another 10 years to where it became a multi-platinum, you know, millions have sold thereafter. And it's your ability to stick with it and keep reselling it and understand there's an audience out there. You just might not have found it yet.
Yeah, perfect. And some people find their audience really late in life as well, don't they? You know?
Yep.
So you just don't know when it's going to happen. Brandon, I think we have time for one more question. What's it going to be?
Cliff Orange asks, well, he says, I have submitted like crazy. I've asked for feedback from music companies, but haven't gotten any. What are the best places for artists to gain viable feedback?
Good question. What do we think, panel?
I feel like putting songs out there, I mean, that has been one way for me, you know, to get and sometimes it's okay to throw up a song and say like, hey, this is new, you know, like I'm just playing it out and seeing what y'all think. And this is the time for that if you're going to do it. I feel like everybody's sitting on their couch, you know, like with a guitar or keyboard, and, you know, you can share your songs that way. I feel like it's great to reach out to contacts that you have. And I know it's been said, but you're building a relationship constantly. And maybe the first thing to email somebody about isn't like, hey, can I get a bunch of feedback on this? But maybe, again, everybody wants to be their own hero. Like, tell them what you loved about whatever, you know, they did that you found inspiring, and build a relationship before starting to send music to them. And I think that, you know, once you build that relationship, you build a trust, and you build this where it is okay to say like, hey, I'd love your feedback on this, because you've shown that you value what they bring to life and to the industry. And there are a lot of programs. I know there's some in Nashville. NSAI does like song critiques where you can send in 12 songs, I think, a year and get feedback back on those. There are definitely things out there like that if that's what you're looking for. But I think to send out blanket, you know, emails with your music and expect all these responses, that can be a very frustrating place, and you might not get very far. You might, I don't know, but I haven't had success that way.
Ashton. Nothing? You're on mute.
I agree with Jen. Real relationship takes real time. And if you focus on that first, you're going to be able to build that trust. And, you know, even if it's mentorship, you might have someone where you're like, hey, you want to find someone just to kind of shepherd you along and that can help you steer you in directions. If that's all you're really wanting, I mean, that's not hard to get someone to feel important, that they would want you to mentor them. You know, people want to help people, and we've all been through the slog to get wherever we are, which in my case, I just say like, hey, I'm still doing it. Like, I mean, that to me is just the success of it. Like, we're one of the little houses that's still around, man. So, you know, but I mean, we had humble beginnings, you know, and I know how that goes. So if someone was like, hey, you know, I just need like some advice or whatever, not everyone in the industry is gonna, you know, turn a dark ear to you about it. There are people, and I think Seth and Jenn too would be most likely to answer questions and you know, share what they could do to help. And their time's valuable too, obviously. So just keep those kinds of things in mind when you talk to people, you know, and check in every now and then. Share a new thing, like, you know, just be like, boom, boom, boom. I know a buddy of mine from Nashville. He's a writer up there, and he just sends me stuff once a month, just on the reg. Here's a new song, boom. He'll text it to me, boom. He's not looking for a response even. He's just like, boom, check it out when you get, you know. And then eventually we get on the phone, we talk, we catch up, and he's just consistently doing stuff and consistently building a relationship.
Well, I think that's an awesome note to finish on.
I have one final question, Vic, for Jenn.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Brett Woodruff says, Jenn, I'm also in Nashville, and I know every salon and barber has been closed until this past Tuesday. Because my melon is looking ragged, how did you get your hair done on such short notice? I'm a bit jealous here.
I did not get my hair done. I am using purple shampoo like it was my job, if anybody knows what that is. But no, it's, you know, just living the quarantine life right now.
Great.
Well, yeah, on that hairy note.
I'm jumping out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brandon. So Ashton, Jenn, and Seth, thank you so much for coming onto the panel and sharing your thoughts with us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you all. And to our very wonderful audience, as always, the Songtradr team and I wish you every fortune in this strange new world and beyond. We hope you enjoyed this happy hour. You'll be able to view the full session on YouTube very soon. Look out for the post on our social channels or a link in the webinar follow-up email. Our next session topic is about one of my favorite things. We'll be talking about music in film and TV. Look out for details on that. We do hope that you leave this session with some meaningful insights to help you in your work and in your careers, because I think it just makes sense that the stronger we are as individuals in the industry, the stronger the industry becomes. And that's really good for everyone. We will see you same time in 2 weeks for our next happy hour. Stay safe out there. Bye for now.